Opening statements just started in Lil Durk's murder-for-hire trial, and the internet is already split into two camps. People calling him a rat, and people like me who think that label doesn't even apply here. Let me break down what actually happened in court, and why I think the Durk snitch narrative doesn't hold up. First, the actual case. Lil Durk, whose legal name is Durk Banks, is on trial in federal court in downtown Los Angeles, accused of putting a bounty on rival Atlanta rapper Tyquan Bowman, known as Quando Rondo.
Rapper Lil Durk has been arrested and charged with a murder-for-hire plot. The Chicago native, whose real name is Durk Banks, was arrested in Florida by the U.S. Marshals Service. The 32-year-old's arrest comes as 5 other people in Chicago were arrested in connection with the investigation. According to the complaint, Banks and his co-conspirators allegedly worked together to, quote, track, stalk, and attempt to murder a target at a Los Angeles gas station, firing at least 18 rounds into the person's vehicle, striking and killing a passenger in the car. Banks made his first court appearance this afternoon in Miami. Banks' lawyer asked for privacy after leaving court, telling ABC, quote, "We will not be commenting at this time." I want to bring in ABC News contributor and Sirius XM radio host Mike Muse and ABC News contributor and criminal defense attorney Shauna Lloyd for more on all of this. And Shauna, I want to start with you on this. The charges against these men include conspiracy to commit murder for hire and use of a machine gun in a violent crime resulting in a death. The most serious charge carries up to the death penalty if
Prosecutors say this all stems from the 2020 murder of King Von, Durk's close friend and fellow artist, who was killed at an Atlanta nightclub. According to the government, Durk became consumed with revenge and directed members of his Only the Family collective to track down and kill Quando Rondo. In August 2022, an alleged hit team traveled from Chicago to Los Angeles, and a botched ambush at a gas station near the Beverly Center resulted in gunfire that killed Bowman's cousin, Saviay'a Robinson, who was riding with him rather than Bowman himself. The federal indictment against Durk runs 32 pages as a 4th superseding indictment filed this past July, naming him as the lead defendant in a case that also charges several alleged members and associates of Only the Family. Jury selection alone took 2 full days, pulling from a pool of 80 candidates before a final panel of 12 jurors plus 4 alternates was seated. Notably, during that jury selection process, attorneys specifically questioned potential jurors about their feelings toward gangsta rap as a genre, given how central Durk's music and persona are likely to be in how prosecutors frame their case. Durk is being tried alongside 2 co-defendants, David Lindsay and DeAndre Wilson, with a 4th alleged participant, Asa Houston, set to be tried separately later. All 3 men on trial right now have pleaded not guilty. If convicted, they're facing the possibility of life in federal prison. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because trials like this move fast once they get going, and I'm going to be breaking down each stage as new testimony comes out. In their opening statement, prosecutors called this a case of revenge and reward, telling the jury Durk was under pressure from his own fan base to avenge King Von's death and became fixated on retaliation. They've laid out a timeline involving stolen and rented vehicles trailing Quando Rondo before the shooting, allegations that Durk was reportedly at a rental property monitoring updates by phone while the operation was underway, and claims that he later attempted to flee the country once federal agents were closing in. The co-defendants' attorneys also laid out their own separate defenses during opening statements. Lindsay's lawyer argued there are no messages proving his client helped orchestrate anything and no financial trail showing he benefited from any of it. Wilson's attorney took a different approach, describing his client as merely a passenger who got trapped into being present that day after traveling to Los Angeles under the belief he was pursuing a legitimate music opportunity with the label rather than participating in a planned crime. Durk's own defense strategy centers heavily on shifting focus onto a cooperating witness, someone who has already pleaded guilty in connection with this case and is expected to testify against Durk as the trial continues. According to reporting on the opening statements, Durk's team argues this individual was actually the one operationally in control of key logistics tied to the crime, and that his cooperation with prosecutors now doesn't erase what his own role allegedly was in setting things in motion. Drop your thoughts in the comments on this one, because here's where the actual debate starts. Is using a cooperating witness's own actions as the basis of your defense the same thing as snitching? Because I don't think it is, and I want to know what you guys think. Here's my take on this whole situation. When someone who's already pleaded guilty and is cooperating with prosecutors takes the stand specifically to testify against you, Your legal team pointing back at that same person's actions isn't betrayal, it's just how a trial works. If somebody already flipped on you, walked into that courtroom prepared to help send you away for life, you don't owe them silence in return. The idea that Durk's defense pointing out another person's role in this makes him a rat doesn't track with what ratting has always meant on the street. Ratting is going to the police first, cooperating before anyone else does, trying to save yourself at someone else's expense when nobody had come after you. Yet, that's not what's happening here. A cooperating witness already built a case against Durk. His team responding to that in court is basic self-defense, not some violation of street code. What's also worth noting is that Durk isn't the only one dealing with cooperating witnesses in this case. Multiple individuals connected to this investigation have reportedly cooperated with prosecutors at various points, which is common in federal cases involving multiple defendants, especially when the potential sentence is life in prison. When people are staring down that kind of time, cooperation becomes a lot more common than most people watching from the outside want to admit. The defense's core argument, from what's been reported, is that the person cooperating against Durk had his own independent motivation for wanting revenge against Quando Rondo's associates, separate from anything Durk allegedly directed. If that individual had a close personal relationship with King Von and was present or connected to circumstances around his death, that gives the defense a real argument to make to the jury. That responsibility for orchestrating this doesn't automatically default to Durk just because he's the most famous name attached to the case. If this breakdown is helping you actually understand the legal strategy here instead of just the surface level drama, smash that like button. Because federal trials like this involve way more nuance than most social media commentary gives them credit for. Prosecutors have also floated the idea that people involved were offered some kind of payment or musical opportunity in exchange for participating, though notably specific dollar amounts or concrete details about what was actually promised haven't been clearly established yet in the parts of the trial that have played out publicly so far. That's worth watching as the trial continues, because a murder for hire charge typically needs to show some kind of concrete exchange, and vague references to payment without specifics could end up being a real point of contention as more evidence comes out. One interesting detail that's come up is that Durk was reportedly living in the LA area at the time, which complicates some of the earlier public assumptions that this was purely orchestrated remotely from Chicago or Atlanta. That local connection is something prosecutors may lean on to establish opportunity and presence, while the defense will likely use it to reinforce their argument that Durk was simply going about his life as a working artist, rather than actively directing a hit from nearby. At the end of the day, this trial is going to come down to what the jury believes about intent, direction, and who actually held decision-making power in this alleged plot. Prosecutors have to prove Durk didn't just have motive, but that he actively organized, funded, and directed people to carry this out. The defense's entire strategy hinges on convincing the jury that the cooperating witness testifying against Durk had his own independent reasons and his own operational control that had nothing to do with orders from Durk himself. This trial is expected to run for several weeks, so there's going to be a lot more testimony, evidence, and back and forth before anyone gets a verdict. I'll be tracking this closely as it develops because the stakes here are about as high as they get in hip-hop, a Grammy-winning artist facing the possibility of life in federal prison. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Durk's defense strategy holds up, or is this looking bad for him no matter how it's framed? I'll keep you updated as this trial continues. Peace.